The word impossible, something that's almost like a curse word when you become an adult. We are taught to get rid of the impossible out of our minds, okay? We are taught to never go after the impossible. Don't chase it, don't look for it, don't live with it, don't even have it in your vocabulary. But I disagree with that sentiment. In fact, I believe that the word impossible should be a part of your daily vocabulary. I believe that the word impossible should be sitting right next to you like your best friend in the lunchroom in middle school. I think you should coexist with the impossible, because I think that's what you were put on earth to do. The unthinkable, the impossible. And today, the very thing that we have been taught to strip away from ourselves and to get out of our minds, we're going to empower today. We are going to empower the impossible. Welcome to the Narrative of Niles Niseem. Here we go. And we are back with another episode and another week of the Narrative of Niles Niseem. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host with the most, Niles Niseem, and welcome to your 10 to 15 minutes of weekly motivation so that you can push yourself to become the person that God has called you to be. Empowering the impossible, that is the title of this episode, and I want to jump straight in because I believe that there's something really good for all the big dreamers out there today. Now let's talk about this. When we're talking about the impossible, the first thing we need to describe is another word that starts with I, called infinity. Infinity. Now, when I was a kid, I love Toy Story, okay? Toy Story was my movie. Toy Story 2, I believe, is the best in the trilogy. Argue with your mama about it. You can do it in the comments. I don't care, but I was always a Toy Story 2 kind of guy. But all three are absolute classics and bangers. But my favorite character was Buzz Lightyear. Buzz Lightyear. That's my favorite character of all time. And you want to know why? Not only because Buzz was really putting that stuff on. I mean, his outfit was sick. I loved his toy. I had it. You know what I'm saying? I loved the Galaxy Blaster and all the different things and the wings he had and the spacesuit. It was sick. He was Iron Man before Iron Man. But the reason why I love Buzz is because of the saying he said that stuck with me to this very day as a kid: to infinity and beyond. Now, when we are watching Disney movies and Pixar movies, there are a lot of gems that are being dropped that we don't pick up when we're younger because we're so enthralled by the animation. But when you get older, you start to really look back on certain things and say, man, that's a bar. To infinity and beyond. Now, the question is, how do we describe infinity? Like, what is the definition of it? How do we put it into words? And the thing about it is we can't. There is no definition. There's no definitive end or beginning. It's something that continues on and on and on. In fact, the human brain cannot even begin to conceptualize infinity. And this is when, personally, if you ask me, when have you cracked the code of infinity? It's when your head starts to hurt. Like when you start to think about just how things can go on and on and on without any end or beginning, and you start to get that little headache in your mind because you just can't conceive it anymore. Yeah, that's when you figured out infinity. That's when you figured it out. Infinity. It goes on and on and on and on. And here's the thing about infinity. Infinity is a thing that works perfect with our lives because when it comes to your dreams, when it comes to your goals, when it comes to your passions, when it comes to your pursuits, there are endless and infinite opportunities and scenarios that can happen. The only one that knows all of them and the only one that can understand this whole thing called life and this intricate tapestry of time and space is the creator. But we can't understand that. But that's the beautiful thing. That's how big your dreams are. There are infinite possibilities for you to go out and live this thing called life more abundantly. There's nothing stopping you. There are no parameters. There is nothing there that says you can't do what you want to do, even if there isn't a path for you to do that right now. Even if the reality around you seems as if it isn't conducive for your dreams and for your call and your purpose. Still, the truth of the matter is that there are infinite possibilities to succeed. Now, here's the thing, though. The question is, if we know there are infinite possibilities, then why do we stick ourselves within simply the possibilities? Like what's possible? We remove ourselves from what's impossible. We only sit there and we deal with what's possible. In other words, we only put ourselves within limits. And why do we put ourselves within limits? Here's why. Limits are comfortable. Limits are comfortable. Remember when I said when you think about infinity, if you really start to think about it, your head begins to hurt? Limits reduce that headache. When you can put a finite in front of that, instead of that infinite, when you can find a start and stop, it makes sense and your mind doesn't get to hurt as much. It doesn't seem to stretch you as much, okay? When you put limits and guardrails on yourself and on your dreams to make it make sense, it doesn't hurt as much to think about. Now, here's the thing. Limits and boundaries aren't a bad thing. So one thing people need to understand in life, anything that exists, most things that exist aren't bad. They just need balance. Let me say that again. Most of the things that exist in life aren't bad. They just need balance. They're not inherently good either. Everything has to find its flow. And so while boundaries aren't a bad thing and limits aren't a bad thing, because if you don't have limits and you don't have boundaries, it's like driving on a highway with no guardrail on the middle of the side of the mountain, you're just going to fall off. You're going to go wayward. You're going to go to the side. All blank is going to break loose. You need limits and guardrails. There's some things in your life that you have to let run wild. There's some things in life that you have to let run wild, because when you let them run wild and when you no longer can conceive it and it doesn't make sense to you, that's when the Creator does what he needs to do. That's when he operates in his best form. That's when he does his best work. Okay. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever, been to the barbershop, but for my guys here, okay, who've been to the barbershop, you try to make sure that you wash your hair before you go to the barbershop. Why? Because if you come in there with any product in your hair or any kind of stuff or gel that's in your hair, what it does is it messes up the clippers and it doesn't allow the barber to do his best work. It doesn't allow him to get you in the right shape. It's the same thing with our dreams. When we come in there with our preconceived notions and doubts and our frustrations and our limits and our boundaries, and we try to put it on the barber, the Creator, God himself, he can't do his best work. He can't cut your hair. He can't make you look good. He can't put you in places that you never even expected to go because you told him, hey, this is what I think is possible. This is what's going to be done. Now do it. Hold on, Playboy. Hold on, girl. That's not how that works. Sometimes you got to let certain things run wild. You got to live in the infinity, live in the impossible, because there are things in your life that you did not know were possible that are going to be done through you. There are dreams in your life that are so big that you're just the ignition. You're just the starter. There are going to be generations of your descendants that are still going to have to work on your dreams because that's how big it is. But you don't know that because you're trying to put limits on yourself. And you're trying to put limits on yourself because you want this thing called life to make sense. You don't want the headache. And that's the thing. Let me tell you something. Dealing with the impossible is painful. It is. Dealing with uncertainty is painful. It's not comfortable. It never was supposed to be. Because if it was comfortable, then we wouldn't need to rely on an external source to help us. But we are finite. We're human. As much as our brain can compute, as beautiful as our mind is, there's just some things we need help doing. And we need to be comfortable living in that impossible, almost like when we were kids. Do you remember when somebody would ask you, what did you want to be when you were growing up and you were a kid? And nothing was off the table? Nothing was off the table. You can say, I want to be Superman. I want to be Superman. I want to be king of the universe. I want to be a firefighter, a doctor, a police officer. I want to be a lawyer. I want to create my own business. I want to rule my own planet. When you were a kid, there was nothing that could stop you from saying what you wanted to be. But you want to know when that all changed? When you started using coloring books. And it wasn't when you started using coloring books. It's when people told you that you should start staying in the lines of those coloring books. You remember that? Because you remember when you first got a coloring book and you were scribbling all over the place and you were just coloring as you freely felt, and you sat there and you would look back and you'd be like, oh my God, this is beautiful. It wasn't until someone told you that the color was meant to be in the lines that the dreams and the work that you previously had started to seem as if it was ugly, bad, and it needed to be discarded. I don't know who told you that you need to be in the lines today. I don't know who told you to think more practically. I don't know who told you that your dreams are too big. But if it wasn't God himself, if it wasn't God himself, then they are wrong. They're wrong. Now, trust and believe though, again, everything does need its balance, okay? So look around you and understand that life, still life's. Still need to be putting money in the bank account, food on the table, gas in the car, paying rent, doing real adult things, okay? So you're going to have to be practical in some sense. Can't just be willy-nilly out here. Remember, you do got to put some limits and boundaries. But if there's something that's burning in your heart, if there's a dream and a vision that you know that you want, that you feel deep down in you, that you can achieve, that it's been God sent, get up and go after it. Hit the play button. Get out of pause. Stop waiting. Go after and achieve what you were put on this earth to do. Because what happens is you need to understand that a lot of the things that we see in life were at one point impossible. I got an iPhone here. If we were talking 300 years ago, do you think that communication via cell phone, where you can just hit a button and call someone across the world instantaneously, was possible? Not a chance. Not a chance. What do you think when someone said, hey, let's try this flight thing out. Let's build a flying vehicle in an airport. You think that people thought that was possible? This camera right here, right now, that is capturing this moment between you and I? You think that people thought this was possible? And not just the camera, the fact that they're using it in color, in HD. Everything you see in reality at one point was an impossibility that somebody made possible. So empower the impossible today. Go after what you want. Go after who you thought that the Lord told you to be. There's going to be some twists and turns. There's going to be some ebbs and flows, and that's okay. But what I need you to do is to revert back to the kid that didn't draw in the lines of the coloring book. Revert back to the kid who at one point in time was proud to say what their real dream was. In fact, that's your homework today. The dream that you are embarrassed to say, start walking towards it. Start walking towards it. But what do I know? I'm just a guy who's trying to put it all together myself. But that's why we're here. We're doing this journey. We're doing this thing called life together. So ladies and gentlemen, let's empower the impossible today. Let's live in the impossible. Let's become best friends with the impossible. Because when we become best friends with the impossible, that is when God is going to do the incredible. And he's going to take us to places that you didn't even know existed. Be blessed today. I'll see you in the next episode.